The music was loud and the laughter louder as guests filled the wedding hall, but at one corner of the long decorated table, a young woman sat alone. Her dress was simple, her eyes lowered, while the rest of the family clinked glasses around the glowing bride. She forced a smile every time someone glanced her way, but the empty chairs beside her told the real story. She didn't belong, not here, not tonight. Her sister, the bride, never looked her way, too caught up in a new life. And the whispers from relatives only cut deeper. Why did she even come? One woman muttered, "Doesn't she see she's out of place?" The young woman gripped her napkin tighter, her chest aching, but her pride refusing to let her leave. Then a shadow fell over her table. A man in a modest suit, carrying himself with quiet confidence, approached. A little boy clung to his hand, his curious eyes peeking up at her. The man leaned down and whispered just loud enough for her to hear, "Act like you're with me," before she could answer. He pulled out the chair beside her and sat. The boy scrambled onto his lap, grinning as if he had known her all his life. The relatives who had been staring turned their eyes away quickly, their whispers dying as the single dad draped an arm casually on the back of her chair. He looked at her, then his eyes, soft but steady. "You don't deserve to sit alone at anyone's table." Her throat tightened, her eyes stinging as she managed a trembling smile. For the first time that evening, she didn't feel invisible. She felt chosen. The young woman sat stiff for a moment, her heart racing, unsure if this was real. The single dad handed his son a small piece of cake, then leaned closer, his voice calm. "Don't look so nervous. I'm not saving you. I'm just keeping people from seeing what they don't deserve to see." She blinked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly, tilting his head toward the crowd. "They don't deserve to see you hurting." Her lips parted, but no words came. The boy tugged at her sleeve, grinning wide. "Want to share mine?" It was the first time all evening someone had offered her anything. Her chest ached, but she nodded softly, breaking a piece of the cake with shaking fingers. The sweetness on her tongue nearly made her cry. The whispers had stopped now, replaced by curious glances. Relatives leaned in, whispering to each other, "Who is he? She looks different." The single dad straightened in his seat, his hand still resting casually behind her chair, but his presence felt like a shield. When her sister finally looked over, her eyes widened at the sight of the girl who once seemed small. Now sitting with her head held higher, the single dad leaned closer again, his voice lower this time. "You've spent enough nights being invisible. Tonight, you sit with me, even if we just met." Her eyes shimmered with tears. She tried to hide, but her lips curved into a real smile for the first time. The young woman felt her back straighten almost without thinking, the weight of the empty chairs around her melting away with the warmth of the father and son beside her. The little boy leaned closer, whispering in his innocent voice, "You smile pretty when you're not sad." She pressed her lips together, trying not to let her emotions spill over, but the words touched her more deeply than any toast given that night. Her sister walked by hand in hand with her new husband, her eyes flicking toward their table. For a moment, she hesitated, caught off guard at the sight of her shy sister, no longer isolated, but sitting as if she belonged. The whispers that once targeted her had shifted now into quiet speculation. "Who is he?" Is that her date? The single dad noticed the glances and smirked slightly. He reached for his glass, lifting it high toward her. "You deserve to be celebrated too, not just endured." The sound of his words carried farther than he intended, and heads turned eyes, widening at the boldness of a stranger speaking like that at the bride's table. The young woman's cheeks burned, but she didn't look away from him. Instead, she lifted her own glass, clinking softly against his. For the first time all night, she felt strong enough to hold someone's gaze without lowering her head. The boy clapped, his hands laughing at the sound of glasses touching. And in that laughter, something in her chest broke open. The sting of rejection was still there, but now it was joined by something new. Hope. The music swelled again, but to her it felt distant, as if the whole hall had faded, and only this table remained. She glanced at the single dad, his son giggling in his lap, and for the first time that night she breathed without the weight of shame pressing her chest. Her sister paused mid-dance watching. Her, with something unreadable in her eyes. Maybe regret, maybe realization, but the young woman no longer needed her sister's approval. The quiet strength of the man beside her had already given her more than she thought she deserved. He leaned closer. One last time, his voice steady and kind. Remember this, you never sit alone again. Not here, not anywhere, because you are worth more than the silence they tried to give you. She bit her lip as tears welled this time, not from pain, but from a sudden rush of warmth she had never expected at her sister's wedding. The little boy slipped his small hand into hers, and she squeezed back gently. A laugh breaking through her tears. The hall could whisper, stare, or even wonder who she was, but none of that mattered now. She wasn't invisible anymore. She had been seen, truly seen. If this story moved you, share it, so others never forget that one selfless act can rewrite a destiny in ways no one sees coming.